I am going to introduce our next guest. It's a privilege of mine to introduce our next guest because he's an industry legend. I met him on a technical tour of, I guess it was a technical tour of Main Street Disney or Underground Disney or whatever, and then following that was a technical tour of First Baptist Church in Orlando. And Bill has the gift of a teacher, and he's a brilliant audio engineer. When your client list include Billy Graham, Bill Gaither, and Walt Disney, you've probably had a pretty good career. So he's won awards from the industry for instruction from the NSCA. It's really a great pleasure to have him come from all the way up from Georgia to be with us this weekend, and we had a great time last night together. He jumped in today to teach the acoustic class, which he found out he's going to have to teach 2, so he's going to be in the next breakout session. But would you please make welcome Bill Thrasher.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Oh, I am an old sound guy, an old sound man. I'll be 66 in June. I was 16 years old. I got a job in a recording studio. I knew enough about electronics. The first thing I did was build a phantom power supply so the microphones would work in the studio. So I all of a sudden figured out I'd been doing music. Started out on alto sax, went to tenor sax, then went to guitar, and then found out about the Beatles, and the guitar has been it ever since. I actually saw the Beatles, in fact, 65 in Atlanta. It was an amazing show. They were in the middle of a stadium full of people. My mom bought tickets to take my brother and I to go see the Beatles. And the problem was as soon as they started singing a song, the girls all stood up and started screaming, and all you could hear was an incredible noise. And as soon as they stopped the song, they stopped screaming, and as soon as somebody talked, they start screaming again. That's all you got, was screaming, and it was just amazing. But the sound company that did it was a company in Atlanta called Baker Audio. They have this wonderful letter in their office from the manager of the Beatles saying, "We're very sorry you guys won't be able to tour with us. Last night was the first night the guys were really happy with the sound." And the question is, okay, what happened? What was different about that thing in Atlanta? In Atlanta, they had monitor speakers, a speaker over here and a speaker over here pointing back at the guys. And it's the first time they'd ever had monitors. Okay? I didn't know that till many years later. But when the girls screamed, they could still hear each other on stage for the first time. So I got hooked real early. I got the recording studio job for a while, did 1 year at Georgia Tech in electrical engineering, and said, nah, I don't want to do electrical engineer. I'm going to be an audio guy. And went out on the road with a group called Truth. It was contemporary music, 1972. And there was a dozen or so churches that first year that basically asked us to leave because we ain't going to let you bring drums and guitars in our church. It was live music. It was singers, band, horns. It was for brand new, it was quite interesting. I did 3 years with a group called Regeneration. My wife and I met there. She's here with me today. She's the high soprano in the group. And we met in the Nashville airport for our rehearsal camp. We did 3 years, and in 3 years, we averaged 13 shows a week. Okay? Noon every day, we would do a show, typically what they call a service club, a Kiwanis Rotary, something like that. We'll do it for free if you'll feed us lunch, and we can sell our records. And what it is the business leaders of the city. This means some city, all the business leaders are in there for this meeting. You never knew who was sitting in there. At one of those meetings, one time when the Regeneration was there, there's a guy sitting in the back corner from Disney. Okay? Another time, there was one of the vice presidents of Best Western Hotels. And all of a sudden, we had scandals, we had promotions going with them. Disney said, why don't you come down and sing for a month in Florida? So all these little afternoon patriotic shows. You never know, when you're sitting at the console, you never know who's listening to you. Okay? Don't ever forget that. You don't ever know who's going to sit there and what that could mean to your future. If you're a singer and you're up here and singing, it's the same thing for you. Okay, everybody's got it. This matters what you do when you stand up here and do this. So I can easily account for mixing 2,500 live shows. I've 600 shows a year for those 3 years. That's 1,800 shows, and then there's a few others after that. I've done one Super Bowl halftime show. I opened up Epcot Center and you know, all kind of weird stuff. I enjoyed working with Billy Graham for 20 years. They were the nicest people I ever worked with, and their response to me was, we want you to hire a sound company, and we want you to treat them better than they've ever been treated before. Wow. And more than once, the president of the company would come to me and go, my crew is freaked out. They're used to being spit on and being, you know, you're lower than the lowest people here. You guys love on everybody. Well, that's what Mr. Graham and the team said. That's what we're supposed to do. That's how we wanted that. So they were a lot of fun. I did probably about 70 of his crusade meetings. Well, there were 70 projects. Some of those were more than one day. And as far away as Russia, we did Moscow with a Billy Graham crusade, where when they would give the invitation, there would be a stampede. The seats would empty to the floor, trying to get down there to have a counselor talk to them. It was just amazing. So I've had a lot of really interesting experiences. I've got 2 or 3 things I want to hit you with today. It's a tough business. And again, like I say, I've got thousands of times sit down to mix. One of the first things I was taught, and I'm thankful I had good mentors, is that what I do as a sound guy, I control dang near everything. If I screw up, doesn't matter if the singers are doing good. Okay? You're in a very important seat. Okay? It's not casual, it's not a game, it is serious. Okay? The group Regeneration, the director of the group, Terry Johnson, was very philosophical about a lot of this stuff. He had sayings, he had a number of, in fact, we had a book of rules that we all had to sign off each one of them. But one of the things we talked about is it's nice to be important. It's always more important to be nice. Okay, very simple type little thing. And so when you meet people and introduce them, part of the deal was we had to sit down at a table with total strangers, introduce ourselves, to tell them our life story, and then we're going to get up and do a gig, and maybe you'll buy a record. And but again, those things turned into a lot of other things. Disney was part of that. We sang at Disney for a month, 3 years, and over a 3-year period, we sang there a month each of those years. I got to know the audio people. When I got after touring, after Regeneration, I went with Bill Gaither for 2 years. Then I was with a small company called Mobile Sound. We were doing all kinds of stuff. We were doing country western music, Glenn Campbell, Roy Clark, everybody's brother, Christian music festivals, the Ichthus Festival. I was on the road all the time. My wife's got home with the babies. And after 8 years of doing that, I went, you know what? I want to get off the road. So I took an hourly job at $8.61 an hour at Walt Disney World, dubbing tapes for 5 months. And I suddenly got promoted to be the number 2 audio guy on the property. And I became in charge of all entertainment audio at Disney. It was wonderful. Most of what I did is coach guys who were mixing shows. We had an audio tech who'd never touched a console before. How do you set the console up? Most of my time was spent doing that kind of stuff. A lot of it was go upstairs and listen to what's going on. If it's bad, go dig into it, find out what's wrong. Teach, fix, keep things running, get the complaints down. Okay, and volume, loudness was, I'll get off of it in a minute. Loudness was always an issue. And, you know, it's outdoors half the time and half the time indoors, and you never know. Quite an interesting place and a wonderful place to work. My wife sang in the first group of the Voices of Liberty, is that right? At Epcot Center, it's an a cappella group there. So she sang at Disney for a fair amount, and then I worked there. While I was working there, I was going to church at First Baptist Orlando. We had a building committee. We hired a consultant. We designed a new building, moved all out there, and I became the first tech director at the church. And I was part-time at Disney and full-time at the church. And I got a call from the Billy Graham Association saying, would you be willing to do 2 times a year, go do a Billy Graham crusade? My boss at the church said, go for it, which I did. Well, that turned into more than 2 times a year. That's what it turned into naturally. Very nice people. So I have done a lot of travel, a lot of audio mixing. And to me, mixing is it's a serious thing. Because again, you really control the whole thing. Whether you like it or not, you are. Okay? I divide the world right now into two worlds. I have the realm of what I call real-time live. That means the band's playing, I'm mixing, and y'all are listening all at the same time. Real-time live. Okay, RTL. So now, what happens? The other thing that happens is what I refer to, we're looking one day. What is the opposite of real time? Real time is the flow of time as we're doing it right now. You're listening to me in real time. What's the opposite of real time? Anybody got a guess? I went about 30 dictionaries before I found a good answer. What? No, the opposite of real time is anytime. Okay? What we have today is the recording studio production business. We can do anything anytime. We'll have the guy come in and dub. Oh, you can come back next week and punch that one note in. No big deal. Oh, we'll go back here. We'll get the auto tune set up. We'll fix that one note. Give me a little time. I can fix anything and do almost anything. That's the other world. That's not a bad world. It's a wonderful world. Some of the stuff they're doing today the music is unbelievable. How incredible it is. One of my favorites is a father and a daughter. Nat King Cole and his daughter Natalie Cole have a duet. When he sang the song, she was a little kid. She was a child. He passed away then at some point. She grew up, became a singer, and they did an album, and it's called Unforgettable. Unforgettable. He sings, and then she sings. They lifted his voice off the old recordings. It wasn't multi-track, I don't think. They were able to lift his voice out, and then she overdubbed it. And you have this duet of the father and the daughter singing together. This did not happen in time. And yet this is an unbelievably beautiful record that you can record and listen to. And we have that level of art, and we can do that magically. So I'm very careful. There's the real-time world, and there's the anytime world. Okay? Both of whom are wonderful. There's no test. But 99% of my work is over here in the real live world. And I want to be very careful that we don't forget that. Just because you can do something in the studio doesn't mean you can do it in the live sound. Okay? And I really don't like it in the middle of the show when somebody goes, "Stop, we got to do that again." That's not a good thing to do in the middle of a program, if you haven't noticed. Okay, that's a bad thing to do. And yet, I've seen that done. I've been there when somebody goes, "Oh, we screwed that up too much. Let's start all over again." No, please don't. Okay, no, yes, I'm ready to leave. So I kind of divide everything in the world into those two things. When you're real-time live mixing, what are you supposed to be doing? Well, listening is very good. You're exactly right. First task is listening. After that, what? I have a lot of fun because I go into churches I get hired to go into a church. They want me to write a report. They want me to evaluate what's going on and tell them what they can do to fix things. So I'm the troublemaker. I'm going to come in and make everybody nervous. Okay. So, and while I'm at it here, if you feel the urge to heckle, please. Okay. I'm not comfortable if you're too quiet. The churches especially, when I walk in, first thing I want to do is I just want to kind of be quiet and not say anything and just watch the sound guy. What's he doing? What's he doing in rehearsal? What is he doing in the service? Most frighteningly to me, more times than not, I see somebody sitting at a console in front of him with his arms like this, and he's looking at the console through the whole song. He's watching the console like crazy. And every now and then he'll go, and that's his mix. Or a gain. It was either gain structure or I think frequency needs to be touched. And I sit there and kind of go, wow, what's wrong with this picture? Okay, why aren't you looking at the people performing? I understand you have to look away from that occasionally, but I want to see what's going on. Number one. Number two, I have some notes. How many choruses are there? When's the guitar solo? Even if they don't hand me music, I'm going to take notes. And there's going to be a pad with my notes on it sitting up there for every song. This is how it starts. This is how it ends. I'll do that even if they don't give it to me. But I'm looking at them, check my notes. Looking at them, here comes the solo. Put the finger on the right place, get it. I'm watching for all of that all the time. Is everything okay? Music should not be the same thing all the way, just constant. It's supposed to get louder, softer, sometimes faster, slower. There's a key change. It's an ensemble, it's a solo. If it's always the same thing beginning to end, it's boring. Forgive me, forgive me, but it's boring. Music is supposed to be a little more alive than that. And I would encourage you, especially if you're the music directors, I hope that's okay. It's an okay title to say music directors, the people in charge of picking music and running the whole thing. I would encourage you, look for songs that are going to work and people can get excited about and enjoy. If it's boring, especially if the people on the platform are bored, it's going to make everybody bored. Okay? It's really easy to be up there and kind of put it on autopilot. And that's the problem with too much today, especially for audio guys sitting at the console. I'm going to get an autopilot and just compress this enough I don't have to ride the level. And, you know, I can watch the console mix it so. You're supposed to be mixing it. It's cerebral, it is audible, it is tactical, all at the same time. And if you're focused and paying attention to it and you're ready when that guitar starts and you've already started moving the fader up, it's going to be right where it's supposed to be. And people in the room are going to go, wow, that was a nice change. It's not just something that was just a little thing, it was huge. So it's a very important thing, this live concept. Now, I want to touch on real quick, how many of you guys are doing streaming? Doing some degree of streaming from your place? Okay, very good. I figured that's as many. Are any of you guys videotaping and then showing that later? Some of that sort of thing? Okay, very good. The guys who are mixing the broadcast audio, okay, that's a real-time mix. Yes, your audience is in some other city, potentially, or down the street or something. It's still a real-time live mix. It's not the Anytime Studio. They're performing, I'm mixing, it's going out, and there are people watching. Okay? It's still a real-time mix. My big deal on that is get yourself metering. Get yourself a set of meters that show you both the average level and the peaks. There's a number of these things on the marketplace, something you can watch, and you get your levels set and do really well and keep on your levels. It's very important to the people on that end that the levels are not jumping all over the place. It goes away at times and from their viewpoint, it's everything in the world. Okay? Very important. It's still live. Now, jump over here over to that Anytime production studio thing. Man, you can do anything. You can go nuts. You can just, well, have the singers come in. No, book them for 2 weeks from now. Time is no longer a matter. Okay? When you go to mix, I have this thing called Pro Tools. I go in here, I can basically mix this thing and I want to make a tiny change. Remember this, do it. Holy mackerel, that's fantastic. I wish I had that in the real world. It don't exist. Okay? Real world is you, brain, fingers, ears, music. Do it. You got to do it. Nobody else can do it but you. Okay? Take it seriously. Enjoy it. See if I can get over here my next note. Try not to get. Y'all excuse me if I'm looking between this and this. I had eye surgery starting 2 weeks ago. I had cataracts, which means the lenses of your eyes get cloudy. I've worn glasses since I was in the 2nd grade. They moved me from the front of the room to the back of the room, and I couldn't read the chalkboard. Got glasses. I am now 20/20 with no glasses. And my brain is still going, something is wrong. This is not right. It is still totally, I get up in the morning, and I would always reach for my glasses, and I get up and still go, oh, where are my glasses? So forgive me if I'm a little... I'm holding on to something. I like it. It's incredible. But the surgery to remove the cataracts also fixed my eyes. But now I can't read anything up close, so I'll get glasses in a couple of weeks to fix that. So now I can see you real well, but I can't read much of my notes very well. So So metering for if you're doing streaming and that kind of stuff. I have a funny term about that. I refer to it as the front of house mix or the live mix, the in the house mix. But then I always refer to the other group as what I call a media mix. It might be going to tape, it might be going to live, it might be going to video, it's going to some other form of media. So I refer to it as a media mix. I've done a lot of media mixing. I did a number of years with the Southern Baptist Convention. They would have an annual convention, and they would stream this thing. My last 3 years that I did it, I had 3 48-channel consoles sitting in front of me. I'm in a little portable trailer with 3 48-channel consoles. This one over here is just pre-mixing the orchestra. I'm taking all this. There's 48 inputs just of orchestra. I'm taking that down to about 8 sends over to my main console. I'm also sending those 8 sends out to front of house and the monitors. So I'm pre-mixing for them and me. Over here is choir, solos, things like that. And in front of me, the talking mics, the important stuff is right in front of me. I'm running 120, 128 inputs, live to air, live to stream. And metering and at this point, it's 2 speakers and metering. You must learn I'm not looking at the picture to see what it looks like much at all. I'm watching that level meter, trying to get as consistent a level as I can and get the right mix. Focus, focus, focus. And you walk away from an hour of that and you're just yeah. If you're not twitching a little bit, something's wrong, okay? But that level, my wife and I talk about it, the singers, the group she was in, they were taught, this is really important when you sing. Sing to the people. Look them in the eye. Walk over there and sing to somebody else. I can't do that when I'm in the booth, but I can do something in the booth and try and make this as real to those people as I can. So I would encourage you, especially if you're doing streaming, get the audio right. If the video goes away, it's called radio. If the audio goes away, it's called technical difficulties. Okay? One has a slightly higher priority. And I have several video friends who just really get angry when I say that sort of thing. You're not supposed to, play those type of things. The thing I see today in churches, the one that's probably besides the guy sitting there watching the console, is this. It's not meant to be rude. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-manufacturer or equipment or technology. Some of the stuff they're building is fantastic. But I've got one church client the young man who's the tech director, he's on staff at the church. He has I don't remember the exact dollar value, but he's got a certain amount of money per quarter, per every 3 months, that he can spend on new equipment. So he buys plugins. He's got a different plug-in on every channel of the console. My immediate reaction is, how do you remember when you go to this plugin? How do you remember exactly which controls do what? Because every one of those plugins is different. And yet, if he doesn't like it, fine. I just take that one out and put a new one in. Are you out of your mind? That's sort of where my head is on the whole thing. I want a console that's going to be steady. When I get there, it's exactly where I left it the last time. And I can recall that scene, get back. How far into this world do we want to go nuts on these things? Your goal here is simplicity, make it sound as appropriate as you can to the picture. And at the same time, keep your levels. And the house, front of house live, especially out in the main room, levels is a whole nother deal. On media, you have a very narrow window of how much volume change you can take and stay audible. Out in this room here, you can go from very soft to piercing, unbelievably loud. The concept of dynamic range. Live mixing out here in this room, should have significant dynamic range. If every song starts at the same volume and goes all the way to the end at the same volume, and the end of the song, somebody talks, goes right back to the same volume, at some point I'm going to be running out the door going, I want something to happen. I need some of that music somehow to change. I just don't want to hear just a roar. So I would encourage you, music directors. One thing I learned from the Billy Graham people and my minister of music from my church growing up They were very sensitive about what's the message going to be this week. Okay, let's go find music that has some degree of connection, something that supports this message. Okay? Minister of music I worked with, he was a machine. We didn't have databases yet. He had file cabinets. He had records of every song he'd ever done in any church, any time of the year. When did he do it last? Here's the, he had it by song and by place, and he was a machine. Pastor comes up, this is my topic. He goes, all right, and we go, bum, 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 bum. There, I got the perfect song. He was a machine. He was amazing, and he always could find the right number, right stuff. Not everybody can do that. I understand that. But at the same time, there was a lot to that. It was so appropriate at times that when they get the song, and the pastor would start with the message, and you'd go, did you guys plan that? That's exactly what my brain would say. That song into this message. Wow. How long did it? It took time and took effort. Somebody really had to dig hard to do that. The Graham people were really good at that as well. They wanted. I will tell real quick. The Billy Graham thing that was the most fun or the more interesting was the first time we did a youth night. Billy Graham crusades were for many years very simple. Choir, there's piano and organ on the platform. Johnny Cash would bring his guitar, and that was a youth night. Okay, that was about as exciting as it got for a long time. We're going to be in Cleveland, Ohio, and the crusade director, who came there and lived there for a year before the actual crusade, went to Billy and says, I want to do a youth night. I want to bring DC Talk, Michael W. Smith, some groups like this in, and I want to do an evening with that, and then Billy preach. And Billy went, do it. And everybody else in the ministry went, it's the end of the world. You know, it will destroy the ministry. It would, just screaming. You've never heard anything like it. And Billy went, nah, I think we should do it. Well, we wound up filling the stadium. All the seats were filled. The police let the kids come in. We had so many kids, they let them come sit on the grass. So the grass is covered with kids as well. And about half those kids came forward and made professions of faith that night. Enormous response. And we had our youth night every time after that. But that youth night thing was very controversial because how loud can I let it get? How loud should I let it? And I've always got guest groups coming in with their mixing in. Well, we had a pretty stiff rule. 90 dBA weighted was as loud as I wanted it to get. Number one, I didn't want to have to put a bigger PA system up than I had to. I could do that without, now, and again, this is just before line arrays become popular. We wound up using a lot of different companies over the years. But again, I was looking for competitive bids too. I was also supposed to get a competitive bid and get the best price for that sound system rental. But they were nice people, and they wanted things done well. And the music became a big deal at that point. They would have all kind of people show up and perform. Johnny Cash was there regularly with his wife and things like that. You never quite knew who might show up at a Billy Graham crusade and perform all of a sudden. So we had to be ready for almost anything. They were very nice people, but it was just, you walk back and you go, was I really there? These things are so fantastic. And yet, in the moment I was doing it, I was probably sunburned real badly. I learned to get a big, giant hat and work it, because it was almost all the time. It was outside in the sun the whole day. You know, it was grueling. So those were great things. Disney was fun. The opening of Epcot was one of the most, I have a very nice letter from the vice president of entertainment at Disney. The opening of the dedication of Epcot Center. They wanted to put on this very elaborate music show. And I sat in the middle of the whole thing. Okay, I know how to do this. I know how do we make this work. And most of the people sitting around the table went, this can't work. It's impossible. We're going to have the West Point Glee Club, which is an incredible bunch of singers. We're going to have the Florida Symphony Orchestra, and we're going to have a 500-piece marching band, all in sync. Really? How can you? I know I can't put earbuds in all their ears. Wireless was just getting going in these days. We were having problems at Disney getting 20 wireless mics to work across the entire property. We hadn't studied frequency. We were just learning about all the intermod and all these other things. This was all brand new. I'll tell another story in just a second about wireless. My first wireless mic experience. The deal was I wound up putting about 50 monitor speakers on the roof of the building all the way around. So all of the marching band had monitors, and everybody else was down there close to each other. And they got this nice letter that says, you were the only guy who said, yeah, I can make this work. Everybody else thought you were crazy, and it came out better than any of us ever thought it could. Well, I'll frame in that letter, okay? I was going to say my first experience with wireless was the Oak Ridge Boys. I was touring Mobile Sound with a sound contractor. They come in, and the first thing they do is they've got their table out here, and they're opening these brand new boxes of Swintech wireless microphones. What's a wireless microphone? I'd never seen one before. I didn't know what it was. They're over here getting batteries, putting these things all together, and I don't know about, wait a minute, I don't know if I can, you want me to plug that into my sound system? That's kind of where I was. Okay, we got to rehearsal. Everybody came in. The band came in. Got through rehearsal. Everything worked fine. Well, it's going to be okay until showtime. Okay? At which point, the front of the house guy, I was mixing monitors. I'm standing up there a few feet away from these guys on the stage. Okay, so I'm sitting here, and there's literally people there. When they took off, the first thing that happened is the front of the house guy went, let's take the system up to max. Okay, yeah, we always keep the sound check low so nobody will complain, and then we just romp it for the show. Well, number one, if you're on the stage, when the PA system gets louder, it gets louder where you're at too, okay? So they couldn't hear each other very well. So they look at me and go, turn up the monitors. And they also took their mics and went real close in real quick. Well, the problem is those microphones had limiters inside of them. I didn't know a wireless microphone had a limiter inside of it. Do you know that wireless microphones are required by law to have a limiter inside of them? They are. And if you have it set up too much gain, you start singing, it turns down. So as soon as they start singing, the mics would turn down. They look over at me and start yelling at me. I'd push the faders up. It came back. As soon as they stopped singing, the limiters would let go, bring the level back up, and it was massive feedback. So this would go from incredibly loud, and I'm doing this, and they're calling me everything but a white man from the stage. And it was awful. I think I'm going to be a truck driver. I don't want to do audio ever again. 2 days later, the manager of the Oak Ridge Boys called my boss at that time and said, tell Bill it wasn't his fault. It did exactly the same thing the next night to the next group. The wireless mics have all been put back in the box, and we'll never use one again. So that was my first wireless mic experience. So again, if you're not having fun with wireless mics, just wait, they will get fun. Questions real quick. Take a little question time. Has anybody got any kind of weird question about this? I just want to encourage you. If you don't know how to real-time mix, do it. Enjoy it. Have fun. But take it seriously. It's not just a little hobby thing. What you do matters enormously to the people sitting in the auditorium. And a lot of those people, it's the first time they've heard some of these things. You have an enormous ministry, and it is typically a somewhat thankless ministry. Okay? But well, it is. I mean, if you do your job right, no one knows you're there. Okay? You're invisible. Exactly what it's supposed to be. I don't like it either, but that is it. Okay? So my thing for Sunday morning is, if you don't have a pad, have something. Take notes. If your music director won't send you the music or send you a chart, find somebody who can help you make up a quick. I'll take a blank piece of paper and go, intro, how much is this? First song is this one, and I'll take notes. So I've got something I can look at, but I'm looking at the stage, and I'm watching them. And if somebody suddenly moves a mic up towards them that I wasn't expecting, I'm ready. I'll be there. Because again, whether I like it or not, it's easy to say we rehearsed this, we know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, right. We're humans. There's going to be someone on the platform do something they weren't supposed to, or unexpected, or whatever. Take their microphone and drop it into a monitor. Okay? Nice. Yeah, and that might take me a second to reach up and mute that, but I'm going to be on as fast as I can because I'm going to be watching for that exact sort of stuff. It takes focus. You can imagine singing a concert, how much focus it takes to sing a half-an-hour program and do it all correctly if you're the vocalist, my wife. It's exactly as intense for me as a sound man. Should be for you. Your effect of what you do is incredibly, it's magnified from what these people are doing up here. You distribute that, you magnify it, and all these other things. And it's very important. And yeah, and so, man, let me also, if you're all right? When you have a shot, all right, please.
Yes, question for you. We have about 7 sound techs at our church.
Okay.
How do you teach to leave your personal preference at the door?
My recommendation is that the 7 of you get in a room with pad or paper or whatever, or around the console, and write down and argue, fight, wrestle, whatever you got to do, and say, this is our standard setup. This is how we're going to set it up. This is where we start every service. And everyone starts in the same place. And somebody's going to have to give a little here, somebody's having to give a little there, somebody's have to give in. Find a compromise that everyone can live with. And again, knowing that the people on the platform can do things, there's going to be a time where you have to reach up and grab a gain control or something. Okay? I will take just a minute or two, if I can, real quick, to talk about microphones and mic technique. I know, we go real fast. I want to be very careful. One of my biggest things, I had somebody call me this last week. He's working so hard. I've got to have the right kind of processor on my kick drum, so it won't feed back I want to hear the kick, but then I don't want it to go and ring afterwards. Number one, turn the gain down a little bit. You've got it too loud, or you have to move the speakers away from it. There's a lot to this. And he got into this whole discussion, and my immediate reaction was, what you're trying to do just can't be done. There's some of these things that you can sit there all day long and say, well, this piece of equipment says it'll fix this. With all due respect, that's a dumb machine. There is no artificial intelligence yet. They're using this, you can see it on advertisements all over the place. Now, we've got audio. You got to be kidding me. None of it's intelligent, it's just automatic. We can buy automatic devices. This kick drum and a compressor. Well, the problem is, the compressor won't start turning down until after the pulse is gone. This thing has both level and time involved. And most people just think of it as a level device. Now it's the time, how long has it been there? How long does it take it to come back down? What's the attack and the release? Those are time elements. If you don't know about this thing, go get some help. Go find a book. Read the manuals. Dig into them. Go read everything you can read about compressors and limiters. My recommendation to you on your standard is things like that. Compressor limiters, find a starting point that everybody can live with. And yes, on occasion, you're going to have to reach up there and go something else. But if you want to be consistent as a team, you got to learn to work together. And you got to commit to work together. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Do you still do any type of audio?
Do I do what? Yeah, I still mix in a couple of different churches where I fill in for the regular guys. Yeah, so I still go. I'm the fill guy when the regular guys out. I sit in. So I still go. There's a half dozen churches in the Atlanta area that I'm the backup. I'm the bottom of the barrel is what I am. But yeah. All right. Anybody else? Does that help? Especially, yeah, because I really don't want to come to your church and sit behind you and watch the console the entire service. Because I will come, probably if I recognize you, I'll definitely come up there and poke you every now and then. I really want to put an electric thing on the chair so the minister of music can wake him up every now and then, but that's another discussion. So thank you very much for letting me be here. I hope that helps in some way. So,